From Airship and Evergreen Podcasts, I'm Jeremy Schwartz, and this is American Criminal.
Hi friends, Joel here. I'm the writer and executive producer of American Criminal, and I'm popping into the feed today to tell you about a show I think you're really going to enjoy. See, on American Criminal, we spend a lot of time looking at the choices people make and the consequences that follow those choices. Every so often, a story comes along that makes you question not just what someone did, but who they really are. Looking back over our series, I'm thinking of criminals like Sante Kimes, Mark Hoffman, Georgia Tan, complex people who made the wrong choices over and over again, often deceiving the people around them so much that no one could tell which side of them was real. Today, I want to introduce you to another podcast that explores just that. On Deep Cover, Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Jake Halpern tells the stories of people who lead double lives. Deep Cover's new season, The Family Man, reveals how families can deceive each other and the lengths we'll go to save our loved ones. It starts with Elise and Marissa, twin sisters growing up in the quiet suburbs of St. Louis. By all accounts, they had a normal childhood, until the night the police came knocking. Just hours later, the teenagers were watching their father on the news in the middle of a high-speed police chase. Reporters call him the Boonie Hat Bandit, a notorious serial criminal who had been hiding in plain sight. Elise and Marissa were stunned. Who exactly was their father? How long had he been lying to them? And how would they reconcile this person they loved with the crimes he had committed? Deep Cover, The Family Man, investigates one family's startling secret, a desperate father determined to protect his children, and the daughters living with the consequences of his actions. Okay, that's enough from me. Here's the preview. You can hear more of Deep Cover wherever you get podcasts, and if you can't wait to hear how this story ends, you can get the full season right now with a Pushkin Plus subscription. Sign up on the Deep Cover show page on Apple Podcasts or at pushkin.fm/plus.
I remember it was late at night. It was like after we had gone to bed.
For Marissa Giamanco, September 18th, 2008, was the moment that everything changed. The last day of one life and the first day of another.
I was sleeping in a big sweater, like one of my dad's sweaters, actually. And I remember being like, I need to put some pants on before I answer the door.
She had heard voices outside and then pounding on the front door. The Giamanco family lived in a cozy one-story shoebox of a house. There were only 2 bedrooms. Their dad, Keith, slept on a couch in the living room so that each of his daughters could have their own bedroom. Marissa and her twin sister were both 17 years old, seniors in high school. And on this particular night, they were worried about their dad. He hadn't come home or called or left any kind of message. The girls tried texting him, but got no answer. It was weird. The family's dog, Lucky, peered out the window. And then, late in the night, came that pounding on the front door.
So I'm all like scrambling to find some pajama pants to put on. They're all like knocking really loud, like, open the door, you know. And I'm like, hold on, I need to find some pants. And my sister's like, who is that? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you know who it is? And because all we could see were flashlights. Like, it was a very bright light. Like, that's what I remember. You could even see like the flashlight light coming underneath the wooden door before I even opened it. And you could just feel the pressure, like, dude, they're gonna open this door if we don't open this door.
So Marissa opens the door and sees a whole lot of guys with badges and flashlights. They ask to come in, and Marissa asks for a warrant, which I find kind of bold. Like, how did she even think to do that at 17 years old?
I think it might have just been watching Law & Order. Like, honestly, if I'm being dead ass, like, you gotta tell me why you coming into my house, dude. So they handed us the warrant, which was a lot of language that I didn't understand at that time.
And then a whole parade of law enforcement officials starts coming into their house.
And it wasn't just the Florissant police, it was the FBI. It was the county police. And I remember one of them saying, "Your dad is in a safe place. You don't have to worry about that. He's just in some trouble." Like, that's literally what they said to me. Like, nothing more than that.
Some trouble. Marissa's like, WTF? Like, what could Dad have possibly done to warrant all of this? Meanwhile, Lucky, the family dog, he's on the offensive, lunging at all of these intruders. One of the cops asks Marissa to control her dog, so she takes Lucky to the backyard. It was a hot, sticky night. The last bits of summer lingered. Marissa prided herself as a moody, rebellious, aspiring writer. And so, very much on brand, Marissa lights a cigarette. And then she just stands there, processing the chaos she just witnessed in her house.
They are flipping over the couch cushions and looking in the vents and opening the closets. And I'm standing there smoking a cigarette. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, damn, I hope they don't find my weed in my room, because I had weed in the closet. So I was like, damn, I don't want to get in trouble too. And Dad's going to be mad at me if he finds, you know what I mean?
Because at this point, Marissa is still assuming that her dad is coming home, that he's still going to be the one she has to answer to about school and walking the dog and the weed in her closet. But as this raid on her house continues, Marissa starts to scratch her head a bit.
I racked my brain for anything, and I was like, I really don't know what Dad would be doing. I'm like, was he, like, involved in an accident? Or, like, did he see something he wasn't supposed to?
Marissa and her sister thought they knew who their father was. A mild-mannered, kind of goofy, kind-hearted Midwestern guy. A single dad who loved hockey and sports trivia. A guy who showed up at their basketball games and orchestra concerts. A guy who drove them to school in his dadmobile, a light blue Mercury Grand Marquis. And Keith Giamanco was this guy. But he was also someone else. This is a story about a crime. Actually, a series of crimes carried out by a mysterious figure who managed to evade the authorities. And it's about justice, about what punishment these crimes deserve. But at its core, for me, it's a story about the secrets that can exist within a family. It's about the disguises that parents put on for their kids and for the world. So much of parenting is built on lies, starting with the stories we tell our kids about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. And then there are the lies of omission. We all withhold things in order to protect our children. We all harbor secrets. It's just that some secrets are much bigger than others. I'm Jake Halpern, and this is Deep Cover, The Family Man. Episode 1, The Raid. Marissa Giamanco is now 35 years old, and I met her for the first time on the side of a lonely, windswept road in east-central Missouri. Marissa had suggested this spot close to where she lives as our rendezvous point. She had this idea that we take a road trip together. There were places that she wanted to take me, places that she thought I should see with my own eyes, places that still simmered with questions. Peering through my snow-encrusted windshield, I saw a woman in a winter parka and a puffy penguin hat. I slowed down the car and she hopped in.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Jake.
Hi, I'm Marissa.
In all my years of doing this, I don't think I've ever just done an interview where I got in a car with someone and went on a road trip with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I love that.
So where should we go first?
I would say that let's start in Florissant because that's kind of where the story started.
And just like that, we were off, driving through the snow, heading for the suburbs of St. Louis. An hour and a half later, we turned onto Abushan Street, a quaint suburban road with rows of handsome brick houses.
Which house is it?
It's this one over here on the corner. Wow. The porch is still red.
This is the house where Marissa and her sister grew up until the age of 16, so not the place where the police raided that night. This is where they lived before that. It's a spacious ranch house on a corner lot. A porch out front, a large front yard, tall trees. It's pretty in a quiet, unassuming way. For a while, Marissa just stared at her old home, as if captured by its spell, ensnared by the invisible tendrils of memory.
It almost feels surreal. Honestly, it feels surreal. Mom's flowers are gone, though. And there was a bird bath, too. She had a bird bath right there. But yeah, beautiful house.
Back when Marissa was a young girl living in this house, her mother, Becky, was still very much in the picture. Becky was also the one the girls went to when something felt hard. She'd sit with you, talk it through. Becky was involved at the PTA at the girls' school and was a leader at their church. And she was an amazing cook.
My favorite memory of my mom is in the kitchen. Seeing her put her energy and that love into the food and then tasting the food. Like, I still to this day have very rarely found a meal that feels as loving as Miss Becky Gimanco's.
When Marissa talks about her parents, it feels like a very 1950s arrangement. Each day, Becky would pack Keith lunch with a few sandwiches and his Stanley thermos. Then Keith would go off to the printing press where he worked. He'd come home tired, hands covered in ink. Marissa remembers sitting with her dad at night on the couch. She'd lie down with her head on his belly, feeling the rise and fall of his breaths until she fell asleep. Then he'd carry her off to bed. During the holidays, her parents decorated the whole house, hung a wreath on the front door, wrote the word Noel in cursive lights on the roof, put a giant bow on the garage, like the house itself was a beautifully wrapped gift. And it kind of was, right up into the moment it began to unravel. Marissa has a twin sister named Elise, and like so many twins, they had a very close bond from the start.
My earliest memory is us in our crib together and conspiring with each other through facial expressions on how we were going to get out of that crib. And she climbed up on my back and got out of the crib, and my mom had to run down the hallway, and she was like, "What are you doing?" That is my earliest memory.
I love this story from Elise, because even in toddlerhood, they're already conspiring, already working together, already figuring things out. And in a strange way, they're rehearsing the very skill they'll need most later in life, escaping. Elise is the older twin by 1 minute, and even though they're twins, in many ways, Elise played the part of the older sibling. She was taller, bigger, more talkative, and very organized. Elise, she always loved checklists.
I would be the one to ask questions to my parents for us, Or like even when we were kids, I would order for her at a restaurant. I was kind of her mouthpiece a lot of the time.
Around the time the twins were 10 years old, they remember their parents started to argue a lot. The girls floated through this turbulence kind of the way kids do, listening and not listening, picking up bits and pieces, like their parents bickering about food stamps, among other things. On one occasion, things got so heated that their mom shoved an ice cream cone into their dad's face. There was a lot of shouting. The girls remembered the police showing up. It got to the point that Elise told me she actually wanted her parents to separate.
I saw how things were going with them. I'm like, yes, please, get away from each other. That really was what I was thinking. I was like, please take time away.
Sometimes Elise says their mom got so fed up, she'd go out to a local bowling alley and come home drunk. So drunk that one time she missed her bed and landed on the floor instead. Elise says that her mother changed from the perfect stay-at-home mom who'd volunteered with the PTA, morphing into someone else. Like one time, Elise was playing in a middle school basketball game. She got called for a foul, and then a moment later, a fire alarm went off.
I'm on the court and I'm like, what the fuck? And somebody ran over and she was like, your mom pulled the fire alarm. And I was like, what? She pulled the fire alarm because she disagreed with the call and emptied out the entire gym.
And it wasn't just erratic behavior. Elise says that her mother would vacillate from being an angel to a devil. No warning, no explanation. When the twins were 12, it all came to a head. Here's how Marissa remembers it.
I remember being in the kitchen in this house, and I remember my dad sitting at the kitchen table. I was like kind of directly like standing behind him about like 2 feet away, and he had his hands up on the table like together, like clasped like up against his head. And I remember him saying, your mom's not coming back here. And just, I just wanted to scream. I might have even screamed out loud, I don't know.
This apparently was their dad's decision. He asked her to leave. Like, he just finally had enough. Once Becky was gone, the girls were alone in the house with their father and the silent presence of unanswered questions. With their mother gone, Elise says that their dad did his best to make their life as normal as possible. Keith embraced the role of a single dad, making meals, driving them to school in his light blue Mercury Marquis, the Dadmobile, taking them to practice, putting them in therapy with a family counselor, and just encouraging them.
I think he tried to protect us. I think he was partially successful. And I say partially because I think many folks forget that children are smarter than we think they are, and they're so observant. And that was no exception for Marissa and I.
It was clear to the girls that Keith, despite everything that he was doing, was struggling, grieving the loss of his wife. Once, when Marissa came home from school, she found him on the stairs down to the basement, with his wedding album in hand, looking through the pages and weeping. It was one of the only times she ever saw her dad cry. She knew he was grieving, but from a kid's perspective, none of it fully made sense. Her mother's behavior, her parents' separation, her father's explanation. And despite her best efforts, Marissa just couldn't get through to him.
I remember having to say his name. I would be like, Dad, 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 and Keith. Like you'd have to go through like the list of names to get him to pay attention. I remember the first time I did that, standing in the kitchen, he was staring out that window right there. And I was literally like, there is something wrong right now. Like, and obviously I was 12 years old. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was anxiety. It was defeat. It was fear.
She says she called him by his first name because she needed to get his attention. But it went deeper than this, because in that moment anyway, her father had seemed less like a dad and more like just a guy named Keith. Well-meaning, kind, but removed, in some way unknowable. Meanwhile, their mother did come back repeatedly, but in the strangest of ways.
She would knock on my bedroom window, so the back window of this house, in the middle of the night, and ask me, "Can you grab the vacuum cleaner and hand it to me out the window? Can you hand me this piece of jewelry and hand it to me out the window? And don't tell your dad that I was here." That's when I was like, there is something going on. Is when she started visiting my window in the middle of the night.
Naturally, Marissa asked her dad about this. Like, what was going on with Mom?
Yep, Dad was like, "Your mom's sick." That's how he kind of tried to explain it at the time, was she's sick, she has a disease. There was no like further explanation. It was, she's sick in the head.
I mean, how do you make sense of that as a kid?
You don't. It sits with you, and you're like, well, guess my mom's sick in the head. Am I sick in the head? I love my mom. My mom has always taken care of me. Is she really that sick in the head? Are you sick in the head? Like, just, there's a lot going on when somebody says that to you.
The girls were left to think back on their mother and all the strange things that she had done as they tried to make sense of it all.
Were there other things besides the handing stuff out the window where you started to see something was off with your mom?
Well, the erratic behaviors, the slurring of words, the nodding out, the not being able to stay conscious, and then there's the opposite, extremely energetic, talkative, not able to sit still. Like, I remember her howling like a dog at some point in the bathroom. Like saying, "Can I get more?"
At some point, it became clear to Marissa that "can I get more" meant, "can I get more drugs?"
So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know what's going on.
Keith may have had the best of intentions. He may have wanted what so many parents want, to protect their kids from pain. But his solution was a lie of omission. Ultimately, his daughters would make two realizations. The first was that their mother was struggling mightily with addiction. And the second was that Keith was an unreliable narrator of sorts, someone who could not be counted on to tell them about the harder truths, even the ones that were essential to their understanding of the world. And this is kind of how life went for the twins. Their lives were like a novel where all the transitions and explanations had been stripped out, leaving just a string of disorienting moments that would make any reader feel bewildered. Keith had always told his daughters that they needed to dream big and think about a life beyond Florissant, Missouri. When they turned 14, he enrolled them in a fancy all-girls private school called Nerinx Hall. The girls weren't exactly enthusiastic about this, but Keith insisted on it and claimed they could afford it. By then, he had stopped working at the printing press and told the girls that he was day trading, using his own money to buy and sell stocks. But money was always kind of weird with Keith. Elise recalled one time they went to an Outback steakhouse, and when it came time to pay, Keith peeled off a crisp $100 bill, half of which was a tip. Super flashy. But then she remembers his other time, midway through high school, when she wasn't allowed to take her final exams because Dad hadn't paid their tuition. So the family's finances, they felt shaky. And then one day, when the girls were 16, Marissa recalls her father telling them they had to move immediately.
Like, it was quick. Like, I'm saying my dad went in the garage and said, you can keep 2 bikes. Because I love bikes. I probably had like 12 bikes. So he was like, you have to set all of them out for free. We'll try to sell some of them. It was like, do you want to keep this? You can't keep that. Like, we have to get out of here. That was like super freaky, like when you're a kid.
This is when they moved to that shoebox-size house, the one where the police raid eventually occurred. Here, you might remember, the girls each had a small bedroom, and Keith slept on the couch. During this time, Keith was out of the house a lot, and Marissa and her sister Elise used to guess about where their dad went and what he did.
We came up with different scenarios in our head. This was my joke. My joke was, Dad builds swing sets in his spare time. I was like, he must be going to build swing sets. That's what I used to say as a joke. Because I was like, I literally can't figure it out. So I'm just going to fucking fill it in with some joke.
Elise remembers asking him where he was off to, and he would sometimes tell her, I don't have to tell you where I'm going. She says with him, it was pure Scooby-Doo mystery. Those are her words. When it became undeniable that things were wrong, like when they had to vacate their house, Elise offered to help.
I also had a job at the time at Banana Republic, working at the mall. And I even was like, do you want help with the bills or whatever? And my dad said, no. Save your money. We're fine.
But clearly things were not fine. There were problems, boxes that needed to be checked and weren't. And you can start to see why Elise loved checklists. In the small part of the world that she could control, she wanted order. Elise didn't really get much more clarity until the start of her senior year. They'd been living in the shoebox house for about 9 months. It seemed like Keith was out a lot, selling swing sets or whatever he did. And then came that muggy night in 2008, the night of the raid.
We're waiting for our dad to finally go home or come home. And that never happened. And I'm thinking about calling hospitals. I'm thinking about calling the police. Because it's just not like my dad to not show up like that.
But it had been a long day. Elise had had school and then a shift at work. She was beat.
I have to lay down at this point. I change into my nightgown. I get into bed. And I see a flashlight coming through my window. And then I hear dogs sniffing around. And I get up out of my bed. I turn on the lights because I'm freaked out.
It's the police. She and her sister open the door, and a whole team of law enforcement officers enters the house.
My dad was in trouble with the law in a serious way because there wouldn't. I recognize seriousness because they wouldn't have sent an entire crime scene unit out to my house if it wasn't serious. They didn't send 1 or 2 dudes. They sent, a whole van of people plus dogs. I realized this amount of labor is because my dad did something serious.
The police moved quickly through the bedrooms, the closets, up into the attic. They took the family computer, boxes of clothing, other odds and ends. The family dog, Lucky, grew so agitated that Marissa had to take him outside. Elise stayed behind, answering the police's questions.
I remember stepping in my room with a couple of the officers and them interviewing me. They asked how much money I'd ever seen my dad have on him. They asked me if I knew, what he was doing earlier that day.
Her mind raced to make sense of what was happening, but none of it made sense.
I was in shock, honestly. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, like I was disassociating as I was speaking to the cops.
The police told Elise that their dad wanted to call them himself and explain what he'd done. That was all they'd say. Then the police gathered the boxes of evidence and left. Marissa remembers they stayed up as long as they could, waiting for their dad to call.
Me and my sister actually laid down in the bed together, and we had the old corded phone with the green lights on it, and we had the phone next to our heads because we were like, we don't want to miss it if he calls. But we were so tired because it was like 3, 4 in the morning that we were like, we have to lay down because we were still planning on going to school.
Finally, at some point, the phone rings. The girls startle, suddenly fully awake. They pick up, and it's their dad.
He calls, and he's like, I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm just in trouble. But there was no actual explanation on that first phone call. It was just, hey, I'm safe. I love you. Everything's going to be okay.
And that was it. That's all he says. Even in the moment of reckoning, this moment of truth, Keith is kind of deliberately vague. And so the whole situation remains shrouded in mystery. Elise also remembers this call vividly, including the way her dad's voice sounded on the phone.
He was very upset and crying, and he said, everything's going to be okay. I'll be home soon. And him saying that, I had hope that he was telling the truth and that would happen, but in my gut, I had a gut feeling that I just knew that this was just going to be a long, long road.
At some point later that morning, they turn on the TV, and there's a big story on the local news. They're replaying footage from the previous day. Marissa remembers seeing an aerial shot taken from a helicopter. She recalls the newscaster saying,
They've been looking for this guy, and then there was a picture of the car that he was driving, the light blue Grand Marquis.
A light blue Grand Marquis, which was the same type of car that their dad drove.
You could see the car, and you could see into the car from this helicopter shot. And there was a cup. It was an Emo's cup.
Emo's Pizza was a family favorite. Keith had one of their branded cups. Marissa recalls it was his dad mug, the one he kept in his car.
It's like, you're like, that's Dad's Emo's cup. It was just too much of a coincidence to not be my dad's car. We're sitting here literally at this house on the couch in the living room, watching the cable television, and we're just like, they have got to have the wrong person.
In this moment, the girls were overwhelmed with shock and confusion, but there was one thing that Elise knew for certain.
This is going to change my life and my family dynamic forever. And I immediately started feeling like I was in survival mode. And that I needed to figure out what was going to happen next. Because everything that had existed prior in my reality is now, I'm finding out, untrue.
Before long, the TV camera crews started to arrive outside the little shoebox house where Elise and Marissa lived. Because this story about a suburban dad who'd secretly resorted to a life of crime, this would soon be national news. Reporters from around the country would be looking for answers. And so too would Elise and Marissa. They wanted to know, what exactly had their dad done? Was he guilty? And if so, how had they not seen this coming? What did that mean about them as a family? Because as of now, the girls had no parents in the picture, no one to pay the bills, no one to answer to but themselves. And this was just the beginning. Soon there would be a very public reckoning, including a trial and a lot of lingering questions about their father, a man they thought they knew. Coming up this season on Deep Cover, The Family Man.
There was literally a feeling of relief when I knew that they didn't have a make on the vehicle, nor did they have a good picture of me. That somebody that I knew would recognize me for the $5,000 reward or whatever it was at that particular time.
And he showed me the surveillance tape, and he's like, "Do you recognize this person?"
This is Detective John Bradley, DSN 3181 of the St. Louis County Police Department, Bureau of Crimes Against Persons.
That is not the look of an innocent man.
Can't put that many people in that much fear and not expect to pay a heavy price for it.
It was an all-out onslaught of police cars, helicopters, cars in front of me, cars behind me.
It was a mess.
It made me angry. I didn't trust anyone after that. What is actually reality? Is everyone lying to me about who they are?
Deep Cover The Family Man is produced by Isaac Carter and Amy Gaines McQuaid. Our show is edited by Karen Shakurji. Our executive producer is Jacob Smith. Sound design by Jake Gorski. Original scoring and our theme were composed by Luis Guerra. Our show art was designed by Sean Carney. Fact-checking by Annika Robbins. Our story consultant was James Foreman Jr. Special thanks to Daphne Chen, Sonia Gerwit, Morgan Ratner, Kira Posey, Jake Flanagan, Corinne Gilliard Fisher, Eric Sandler, Christina Sullivan, and Greta Cohn. I'm Jake Halpern.
That was a preview of the new season of Deep Cover, The Family Man. Find Deep Cover wherever you get podcasts.
Now, hey, before you go, don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to American Criminal and leave us a 5-star rating. You probably heard it from other podcasts, but those two little things really help us out a lot. You can also visit AmericanCriminal.com to get in touch with us and let us know what criminals you'd like to hear about next. American Criminal is a co-production of Airship and Evergreen Podcasts. It's hosted, edited, and executive produced by me, Jeremy Schwartz. Audio editing and sound design by Sean Rule Hoffman. Music by Thrum. This episode is written and researched by Joel Callan. Managing producers are Emily Burke and Sarah Wilgrew. Executive producers are Joel Callan and Lindsey Graham.